Hello, BookTube. I'm here with a tag. It's called the Guilty Reader book tag. I was searching around for a tag, and it turns out this is actually quite old. It's over 2 years old. I started watching one with this, and I heard enough of the questions that I thought this could be interesting, but I just could not continue with the video. Somebody squealing and squawking, an adult, young adult, and sounds like a 1-year-old, and that's all they do, and all their videos seem to be like that by quickly looking at it. I just couldn't continue. So I finally found a one that had the questions on it. It took a little while because the originator of the tag, the video is gone private, so not even mentioning it. But yeah, it's old because I even saw Steve Donahue do this a little over 2 years ago, but he didn't have the questions down, so I had to keep looking. There's 10 questions, and I think we can get through them pretty quickly here. And I think it is written for a younger reader because it seems like there's a lot of peer pressure type, the questions that are from this. Question one. Have you ever re-gifted a book that you've been given? And the answer is yes. Since I've come to the UK, I never had this. Well, I never really worked. I worked quite a few places, but they never did this in Canada. It's something called Secret Santa, and where everybody's name's put into a hat, basically, and you pull something out, and you've got a budget, no more than £5 or no more than £10 or whatever. You buy a gift for someone. And what I find is most people don't even find out anything about the person if they don't know the person and what to get them. I always did. I figured, I'm not going to get them something that they don't want. But that just doesn't even seem to come into 90% of the people's thought processes that I've come across doing this. So they would learn that I like books. So to them, a book is a book. It doesn't matter what. It could be the latest, thriller bestseller, or Shakespeare's first folio. It's a book. Doesn't matter. So I've got things like that where they've gone to either a thrift shop, a charity shop, or like a remainder shop, and bought several books for a certain price, and it's just books. They just sort of go in blindly and grab something. So I pass those on. I'm just not interested in them at all. So number 2, have you ever said you have read a book when you haven't? This is where I think the peer pressure type thing comes in. I've never done that. I just don't know. I think I know why, because some people would be afraid of being left out of the conversation if they did. That's never bothered me, and I'm never concerned of that type of thing. Just look at me and you can see it definitely is. Number 3, have you ever borrowed a book and not returned it? Yes. There's 2 specific occasions that I remember. Never from a person, friend or something like that somebody's lent me a book. It's from libraries. University library, when I was going to university, there was a couple books that they turned out to be fairly expensive. The only thing I can think of, they must have slipped out of my bag when I was on the bus. Because they just, I don't know, and I don't know what happened to them, but that was the only conclusion that I could find. But I didn't notice any different in the weight of the bag either, so I don't know what happened. I just never was able to return them, so I had to pay for them in order to get my results at the end of the year. And another here, it was a library here as well. It was about 6 years ago, I guess, 7 years ago, when I had to move. I had to sort of get rid of a lot of stuff and put in storage for a while. But just before that, I went to the library, which I very rarely frequent anymore. But I thought I'd grab a bunch of mysteries off the shelf. So I grabbed a whole bunch, and I read some, and there was a couple that got mixed up with my books, and they got into storage, and I didn't know where they were, so I couldn't find them. I only found them when I moved in here, and I went to take them back to the library, but but that was like however many years later. I hadn't really used the library since then, honestly, and other than just using the internet and photocopying and stuff like that, because I just don't find they have anything I'm interested in most of the time. Let me see. Have you ever read a series out of order? Yes. The one I specifically remember is C.P. Snow's Strangers and Brothers. But ever since, like, when I first frequented usually used bookstores, and that was basically from 1980, late 1980 onward, because where I lived originally before that was way out in the country, northern Ontario. You'd have to go 100 miles to a bookshop, so that never really happened. There was occasionally books in a little shop that we would go to on a spiral book spinner, but not much stuff. So it was in the early 80s, so I would go into the bookshop. I didn't have much money then. So I would frequent the paperback or the discount section, and I keep pulling stuff off until I found something that I thought would be of interest. So that's what I did, and I continued to do that for a long time, and I still do that. When I'm in a bookshop at times. But when I was in university, I was looking for something fiction-wise to read, and I pulled off a book called The Masters by C.P. Snow. And at that time, I pulled it off the shelf. I didn't realize that it was part of a series. And I read the back, and it was about the electing of a new master at a Cambridge college. So I thought, yeah, I'll get this. Then I found out that it was part of a series, and I enjoyed it so much that I read the series. And it's become one of my favorite reads, and I've read it 3 times now. And I really enjoy it. So yes, I have done that. And I've done it on other occasions, I'm sure, but I can't think of specifically what. Number 5, have you ever spoiled a book for someone? Yes. And again, this is it must be for, I don't know, this question might not be specifically for a younger person, but I have spoiled it for people because, and the people that I've spoiled it for are people that I just don't understand how it's spoiled for them, but they're just fragile. That's the only thing I could think of, is that the few people that I've met like that, they're voracious readers, but if they like a book, everybody else should like it, and if they don't, they're devastated when somebody says it was a bad book, and not just saying, "Oh, I thought it was trash." It was like, "Oh, I thought it was trash because," and it goes in to say why, and that even makes it worse for them. And so, yeah, so that's usually how, or speaking, with somebody else and discussing a book that you do like, and then somebody else is sort of there, and they're all angry because now they figure they can never read that because they know what it's about. And it's like, this was before, spoilers was used as the word spoiler. So, yeah, it's fragile. Have you ever dog-eared a book? That's number 6 now. No, I've never done that. I've actually undog-eared books, even if they're not my own. I will, if I see it, I will unfold it. I will never fold over a page. I've never done that. There's always something you can grab. A piece of paper, you can tear the corner off usually to get something. And if not, you just sort of remember where it was until you sort of get up from your spot and get something to stick in it. I would never, ever, ever dog-ear a book. Doesn't matter whether it's something that's even old and falling apart. I just don't do it. 7, have you ever told someone you don't own a book when you do? Yes, and that's going back to, have I ever spoiled a book for someone? I sort of learned my lesson, and I try not to. And it's even happening, I would say yes, I've done that, because if they've asked me, do I have this book? And if I say yes, and then the question is, have I read it? Yes. What did I think of it? There's the problem. So it's easier to just say, oh, no, I don't know that. I don't know that book. So, and it still happens now. It's like, like I succumbed to hype last year for a book. And I bought it because it got really cheap. So I thought, it sounded really good. And then I tweeted the first few pages, oh, this is really good. I think I'll enjoy this. And then as I get halfway through, it's like, ugh. But I persevered and finished it, and then just said I didn't like it. And that made people angry because I didn't like it. But I said why I didn't like it. But yeah, so I try not to. Number 8. Have you ever told someone you haven't read a book when you have? Yeah, for the same reason. That's the exact same reason as number 7. Because some people might, especially if I don't like it, or if I know that person is either, if they don't like that book, and I said I do, they think there's something wrong, and it's just fragile people. I sort of like it when somebody says, "Oh, you didn't like a book that I wrote and that I read," and I would say, "Oh, why?" I want to know why. Just because they say they didn't like it, that's not enough for me. I want to know what was the reasons for this, and that sometimes with the right people, it can start a great conversation, and you can they can sway me and make me realize, oh crap. Yeah, it actually is a pretty bad book, isn't it? I'll have to relook at that. Or I could change their mind and make them want to read it again. But just to say, oh, it's bad, that's it, and walk away, it's not that useful. Number 9, have you ever skipped a chapter or section of a book? Not with fiction, but with non-fiction, yes, a lot, and I still do. Because there could be essays, I'll just want to pick and choose an essay that I read, or a section I want to know something, I'm reading something else, so I would read this section to see what they have to say. And yeah, so I do that all the time. It usually is fine, but sometimes it depends on the writer and depends on the book. If they're creating a narrative that, that you need to read it from beginning to end, then that could be a problem. But it doesn't happen that many times that I do that for those. Number 10, have you ever badmouthed the book you actually liked? Again, no. Again, I think this is the sort of social inadequacies of and peer pressure that I just don't succumb to. I never have. So that's the 10 questions of the Guilty Reader book tag. I won't tag anybody because I know it's been around for a long time, but if you haven't done it and you find it interesting, then feel free. I'll put the questions down at the bottom once it's uploaded. Take care, BookTube. We'll be back later with that essay.